Hi everyone.
Hi, I'm Natsu.
I'm Carrie. We are your doctoral webinar coordinators, and today we are joined by Minhui, who is a PhD student at the University of Oxford. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello everyone. My name is Minhui, and I'm a third-year degree student, and I'm in the EMI Oxford research group in the Department of Education. And my research interest lies in vocabulary learning and learning strategies.
Thanks. Minhui, could you tell us about your PhD research a little bit more?
Yes. So my research is basically about vocabulary learning and language learning strategies happening in EMI classes in China. So my research context is actually a case study in one university in China. This university is independently running, which means it doesn't like all the programs are not joint running with other foreign universities. And this university has the largest number of EMI courses offered in China, so that's why I chose this university as my target university. And my research is longitudinal, so I focus on how students adapt their vocabulary learning strategies over a term of study in EMI classes, while actually some of the students have EMI experiences, while some don't. But I'll still look at how specific EMI classes actually affect their vocabulary learning strategies. And also I do disciplinary comparisons to see whether the vocabulary learning strategies differ in different disciplines, because actually different disciplines have different types of vocabulary. In those science or engineering courses, there are more technical vocabulary, while in the humanity or social science courses, they are more like daily life vocabulary, but actually appear in a different meaning in EMI classes.
So which disciplines are you looking at? Is it science versus humanities, or do you have specific departments?
Yeah, so I'm like in general looking at the science and engineering in one group and humanity and social science in another group, but I do have like some specific courses in each type of in each group. And my participants are both undergrads and postgrad students in the specific university taking EMI courses. The reason for me not to limit the students to specific year age or grade, because actually when I did the piloting, I found there was no great differences between students' vocabulary proficiency, whether as postgrad or undergrad students. So that's interesting. Yeah, so that's why I want to include as much as possible in this specific case.
And now, why did you decide on this specific topic?
Oh wow! So actually, I was studying English language as an undergrad, and also I took lots of EMI courses when I was doing my minor in economics, and I was quite interested in this type of courses at the very beginning before I get into this area of doing EMI research, because students always complain about that, like having difficulties in reading or the textbooks or doing those homeworks, understanding the language and also using the language. And they also sometimes complain about the teachers don't have proper way of teaching them in English, because actually maybe because of the limitation of their proficiency, so they cannot express their ideas very well in English. But actually some of the courses in some departments, like the EMI courses, are compulsory, so students have to take that, because China is now encouraging more universities to open up new EMI courses. Then the students are actually feel very stressful about taking these courses, and also teachers sometimes do express the ideas about they're forced to teach these courses in English, and we don't know how to do that correctly. So that's why I'm quite interested in EMI generally, and also in what's happening in class. And during my master's study, I also did my master dissertation on EMI courses, but I was focusing on the teacher language in that. So that is from teacher's perspective. And when I was progressed to my DPhil, I decided to do something from students' perspective on their learning. And because my experience let me know that actually though language is not the focus in EMI classes, but students sometimes do struggle with language, and they need to memorize some vocabulary to progress or to finish the course. And also teachers generally assume that students would acquire some technical vocabulary when taking these courses. But that's why I want to focus on vocabulary learning in this course, in EMI context, which haven't been researched before.
So for your PhD, you developed a questionnaire on vocabulary learning strategies in EMI classes. Could you talk a little bit more about the questionnaire development and the distribution?
Yes, that's right. So basically, there's loads of vocabulary learning strategy questionnaire in EFL context. So I try to refer to those questionnaire on deciding the structure of my questionnaire. And finally, I decided to use different stages of learning to develop the questionnaire, because I personally find out that when I'm reflecting on my vocabulary learning strategies, I can come up with as much as possible strategies when I divide the strategies in terms of their stages of learning involved, like discovering new words, or to consolidating new vocabulary, or trying to consolidating through further uses, or trying to discover the meaning. So there are basically three different stages I use in my study. The first one is to selecting those vocabulary that I want to learn, because there's a large number of new words and also different aspects of knowledge, like pronunciation, spelling, that you need to focus on. You cannot focus on everything, so you need to do selective attention to them. And the second stage is discovering, which means discovering the meaning of that. You can either discover that from teacher talk, like teacher explained that, or through dictionary, or through guessing. And the third stage is consolidating. So you can consolidate it by making a vocabulary list, or to memorize different memorization strategies or association strategies. And also you can consolidate that through further practices. So I try to divide that into these three stages of learning. And so I did 2 pilots to finalize my questionnaire. And the main reason for doing this pilot is because the previous questionnaires have all been used in EFL context. So I'm not quite so sure whether the items are suitable to be used in the EMI context. So in the first pilot, actually, I use open questionnaire to ask students, to elucidate from students those strategy items. And I also use follow-ups and structure interviews to further elicit from students on those items. And then with those items, actually, I divided a basic version of my questionnaire in the second pilot and give that to a bunch of students, around 100 students, to decide whether there was some problem with the structure, the wording, the layout, and also trying to do the within item reliability analysis to see whether the questionnaire itself is reliable. And then afterwards, finalized the version with 58 items was distributed in the main study to students.
Wow. So can I ask you a question about participants and sampling? A lot of PhD students like yourself rely on questionnaire data in their research, and many of us have struggled with getting our questionnaire out there and distributing it and getting enough participants. Could you talk about your process, both for the pilot and for the main study? What did you do to get participants?
Yeah. So basically, I do encounter the same problem when I was recruiting my participants. The main reason is because I combine the questionnaire with vocabulary tests. So the whole thing takes about over 40 minutes for students to finish, and my study is longitudinal, which means the students have to finish the thing twice in the term. So that's why a lot of students are unwilling to invest time to do the questionnaire. And so one of the basic reasons for me to include postgraduate students is because actually it's very limited of undergraduate students would be willing to participate in the study at the beginning. And I found no difference between the vocabulary proficiency, so that's why I decided to include both undergrads and postgrads as my participants. That's the one way to enlarge your population. And also I try to access my participants through teachers. So although I only research on students, but actually I need to go to different classes to recruit students. So that's why I try to explain to teachers in advance about the importance of my research, and some teachers allowed me to go into the classes to explain that. So I think with face-to-face explanations, actually, there will be more participants willing to participate. And actually, the third thing is, I think, basically you need to tell them the importance, because this specific university is research university. So students actually, when you explain how this one will, actually I try to tell them that because I'm doing vocabulary tests, so I can give you some feedbacks on that to tell you on like what your proficiency will be, what your vocabulary level will be. So students might be interested in that. And so that's the third way of encouraging students, because you actually give them certain feedbacks from your research, which can encourage them for further learning. So this is for my questionnaire bit. And for the interview bit, I think my participants, I'm very lucky that my participants are very passionate in that, because maybe because my questionnaire is really long. So those who are willing to participate in the questionnaire are willing to do the interviews. So that's why I try to, aside from those questions, I ask them like those structured design. I also give them some feedbacks on their like strategy use, and try to use other students or my personal experiences to give them some recommendations for strategy use, so they can benefit from like talking with me. I think that's very meaningful for them.
Yeah, those are some really good recommendations.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you
I
very much.
enjoyed hearing about your research. And thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.